Hello, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining in today. My name is Joey Kramer, and I'm excited to be here with you today as we begin this new journey on the Mental Health Warriors Network. I'm teaming up with them in order to help conquer and overcome the stigma of mental health. So thank you for tuning in today. And today's episode is really going to be all about kind of you getting to know me and what my story is. As for me, I'm a professional speaker, I'm a life coach, and the founder of the Reality Practice Network. I'm also a trauma reprogramming specialist, and I help people overcome and rewrite the stories of their past in order to free themselves from the traumas they've suffered from their own unique perception and version of the past. On today's episode, like I said, I'm going to share my story with you and how I discovered this ability that we all have to rewrite our past and design the future any which way we choose it and desire it to be. If we have time at the end of the show, I'm going to open it up to questions. So let's just get started and begin the show. I want to ask everybody that's watching an important question, and it's how many of you truly believe that it's possible to go back in time and to rewrite the past, to change the past? And what if I told you that this is actually possible and that this is exactly what I did with my own past and my own version of reality? You see, in December of 2020, I went back in time and I rewrote my past, which included my biological DNA. And that in turn has changed the direction and the course of my life forever. And today I want to share that journey with you and reveal the exact process I used to heal from the traumas I suffered as I rewrote everything about who I believed I was. And in doing so, I overcame the stories I believed I'd been telling myself about who I was and about the reality I had created for myself. And as I did this, I learned how to create a life of true fantasy, actually, in reality. My life is amazing. And I look back now on every moment that's ever happened to me, and I'm truly grateful for the opportunity and the experiences I've shared. Each of us possess this power. And give me 1 second here, and then we'll get going. I want to check the comments, get that pulled up just so I know if anybody's asking anything or engaging here. So, all right, let me get this going again. Sorry about that. So the fact is, each of us, we possess this power to create the reality we truly desire. It's just simply sleeping within us. And all we need to do is awaken that power. What we've been taught to believe about who we are and what we are is the farthest thing from the truth and the reality of our true potential. What we've been led to believe that we're capable of achieving in life, it's only a fraction of what's actually possible. And when you understand just how our reality works on a much deeper level, how the stories we tell ourselves are the actual cause and the creator of the reality we live, that's when your reality can truly begin to change and evolve. You see, for me, my story began at birth when I was abandoned by my biological father. He left my mom and me to basically survive on our own. And as my story continued on, I experienced and lived through some childhood sexual abuse. I entered my early teenage years. I developed Tourette syndrome, which further complicated and added really to the story I'd been telling and writing about myself since birth. It was around my teenage years as well that I started experiencing depression. And I suffered from that most of my life up until really the past 5 years or so. In reality, the last couple years is when I've really escaped and gotten outside of that depression that used to debilitate me, that used to control my life, really. But all of this that I'd suffered early on in my life, it led me down a path of substance abuse, which included alcohol, drugs, even sex. I was doing anything I could to fill that void that existed within me, that deep longingness for something more that I felt like I didn't have already within me. And it wasn't until my senior year of high school, I guess it was my senior year in high school, I encountered the next trauma, really. And I blew out my knee during football practice, which put me on a different course of life altogether. I was really involved with sports and really determined to become a college athlete. And when I blew my knee out, it was devastating. It set me back. It kept me from moving forward in what I thought my life was supposed to be. And it only enabled me, I should say, to experiment more and to get more into alcohol, drugs, and all of my addictions, because now I had the time to do it. So fast forward a little bit more, 4 or 5 years later, it was just before my 21st birthday was when I attempted suicide for the first time. And thankfully, by the grace of God, I awoke from a coma the next day in the ICU where I'd been saved the night before with mere minutes, they told me, before my liver exploded. And that would have been it for me. So, I've experienced depression. I've experienced attempted suicides. I've experienced trauma, sexually, abandonment, all these things adding up. But at that point in time, I was still recovering and living my life. I was going through the motions, basically, but never truly really fulfilled, never really understanding what my purpose was in life and understanding who I was. I believed I was this version of who I thought I was supposed to be. So fast forward a little bit further. And in 2008, I married my wife, my first wife. And from that, I was able to get 2 amazing children from that marriage. Unfortunately, in 2012, we separated. And after 2 years of brutal legal battles and everything, we finally got divorced in 2014. And it was around that time, honestly, I really started contemplating again the thoughts of suicide. We'll dive into some of those experiences in later episodes and future episodes as we go along here, because I want to share really all these stories, all these traumas about my life. I want to be an open book to you guys because they're part of who I am. They're part of what has made me and created me into the person I am today that you see before you. So I want to be an open book with you guys, and I really want to address and overcome that stigma, of mental illness and how most of us, I'd say everybody, has somebody in their lives that suffer from it. If not everybody suffers from it just a little bit. So moving forward, in 2015, I met my current wife, April, and she's been a rock for me in so many ways. She has been the support that I've needed to really get me through some dark moments, over the past 6-7 years that I experienced. And, but the beauty is at this point in my life, when she entered, that's really when things started to change for me. It was at that time that I started to ask the why behind a lot of the things that had happened to me. You see, it prior to this moment, the story I'd been living up to, the life I'd been believing about myself and about who I thought I was an abandoned child at birth by an alcoholic, abusive, womanizing man whom I believed I too was destined to become. I thought I was going to turn out exactly like him. And having had the divorce I'd just gone through, was I following in his footsteps? Was I going down that same path that he had laid out for me? Not to mention my mom's side of the family. They also had suffered divorces throughout their time. And, they had issues with alcohol and abuse as well. So I really had it coming from both sides of me. Who was I supposed to be? Who was I destined to become? It was obvious back then, and the way I lived my life, that I was simply fulfilling this story of abuse, alcohol, bad relationships. I never really thought I deserved any, I never thought I deserved the true love. I deserved the happiness that all of us seek. I blamed myself, and I told myself these stories over and over in my mind. that brings us to 2020. After investing the past 5 years from about 2015 on, investing just so much time and research and money into self-improvement, I was learning a lot about who I was. Just from 2018 to 2021, I read almost 500 books ranging from personal growth, business development, spirituality, metaphysics, the quantum sciences. I dove in deep and I couldn't get enough information and knowledge. I was like a sponge. And this brought me to the moment in 2020, December of 2020. It all built up to this moment where I accomplished a truly unbelievable feat. And that's where I rewrote my biological DNA. And that's the story I'm going to share with you today, and how I did it, and the steps I took, and the healing that had to be done from within me in order to rewrite my story so significantly. The journey of my life, I completely was able to go back in and to reimagine it into the reality I truly desired. And I want to share that with you because it's so powerful, and it's going to be the basis of really what this show is about. How do we overcome those stories? Because those stories are just that, they're stories. And it's our job, it's our mission while we're here to understand and see the beauty behind the stories, to see why things happen the way they do, and that it's all meant for us. So let's start with basically up to date here. December of 2020, I attended a self-help, self-development seminar with Tony Robbins. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. Amazing work. What he does for humanity and awakening us is truly unbelievable. I can only hope to follow in his footsteps and to have any kind of impact like he's had, just a fraction of it. But I'm attending this event in 2020 called Date with Destiny. And it was shortly after that, from about a 10-day time frame, where my life completely flipped upside down and the entire story was changed and rewritten for me. And, all the work I had done prior to this event had helped me grow and evolve in so many ways. But at the end of the day, I entered the event with this still underlying issue that I knew was holding me back. I knew was keeping me from experiencing the true growth, the true, passion and love for life. And it really stemmed from a lot of anger and a lot of frustration and a lot of resentment that I had bottled up inside of me. I didn't really know. I had ideas, but I didn't really know where they were coming from. I didn't know why I had such anger, but it was coming through, if not daily in my everyday life, from small things to little things. It was affecting relationships. It was affecting relationships with my wife, with my business. But I went into this event committed solely to understanding where this anger, this frustration, this resentment, where it was coming from. And that was my sole purpose for the event. I discovered that who I was throughout this process and the identity I believed I was living was in fact a direct result from the abandonment I suffered at birth. After day one, this is how impactful it was. After day one, I realized all of the crap and all of the lies I'd been telling myself about this idea that I was abandoned, the fact that I was abandoned at birth. I'd put all this pressure on myself, and I'd put all this anger and resentment towards this man who I don't even know, this man who left my mother and me and left us on our own, right? And I realized how much anger I had. And it was at that moment I realized, holy crap, he had nothing to do with any of that. It was the complete opposite of the situation that I was realizing. This, for 40 years of my life, I'd blamed him for all the trouble, all the struggle, all the failures I'd had in my life. I blamed him for it. And I didn't even know who he was. It was all just a story that I had made up in my mind about who I believed he was and who I'd been told he was, Therefore, that was who I was destined to become. That's who I thought I was going to be and what my life would eventually turn out to become. So having realized this on the first day, just truly mind blowing, right? And that's when I woke up the next morning around 5 a.m. and I decided I was going to write him a letter. It's going to write a letter to forgive him. I never intended to actually send it to him. It was more for just my own inner healing. So I decided I was going to write a letter. And in that letter, I was going to forgive him. I was going to forgive him for all the beliefs I had created around who I thought he was. I was going to forgive him for the way my life had turned out because it wasn't really his fault. It was all about what I thought and believed in the story I'd been telling myself. So I sit down to write this letter and I get one sentence in on my notepad and I completely lost it. I just burst out in tears and I literally cried for an hour straight. And it was one of those just total release type of cries. And I just let it all out. All of that built up anger, all of that frustration, all of that sadness. I just let it come through me. And at the end of that hour, I started to regain my composure and come back to reality, I guess you would say. And I looked down at that piece of paper that I had started writing, the one sentence, and I realized I no longer had to write that letter. It meant absolutely nothing at that point because everything I needed to write in that letter, I just experienced and I just felt emotionally in that release. So moving forward from that, as if that wasn't, a big enough realization and breakthrough, and healing process, I continued on with the seminar. Excuse me. And there we go. So I continued on with the seminar, and on the very next day, we do a early childhood regression meditation. And for me, I was able to go back to a moment in time, the age of 5 years old. I remembered an event that I had completely forgotten about and blocked from my mind. And it was a time when my mom and I had taken a trip down to Texas to go visit and reconnect with my biological father. And as we go along in this story here, his name is Robert. So when I refer to Robert, that's who he is. But so we begin this meditation and we're going backwards in time in our minds, right? And we're asked to place ourselves in our childhood bodies at that moment, seeing through our own eyes, visualizing at the moment exactly where we were, what we were doing, what we were experiencing. And for me, I remembered I was playing at the park. I was on a jungle gym, swinging, playing, sliding down the slides. I was having so much fun. I was having the time of my life, right? And we were asked to remember what we had felt like and what we were thinking just prior to that moment, just prior to that experience. And I started thinking about that. And while I was having so much fun playing on the jungle gym and impressing my father, it all hit me at that moment. And what came on was this feeling, this fear, this anxiety, this stress. It all started to hit me. It all started to sink in as I started to ask myself the what ifs. What if I wasn't good enough for him? What if he didn't love me? What if I did something to screw this moment up for my mom and me and he wouldn't come back home with us? And it was also at that moment that I realized it was like just profound. I realized, wow, how in the world could I possibly have been responsible for any of these thoughts, any of these fears that I had? I was simply a 5-year-old boy. I couldn't have controlled the outcome of the situation. I couldn't have controlled anyone else's thoughts, no matter how badly I wanted them to be true. I had nothing to do with it. And I had nothing to do with how this situation would end. Yet it was such a monumental moment that I obviously took this into my subconscious mind. And, those underlying questions that we ask ourselves. Are we good enough? Are we loved? Will they accept us? Those were the things that were going through my mind at that moment. And it was a huge awakening for me that I had bottled all those up and I had pushed those so far down inside me. They were now coming out and I could see clearly what I was actually feeling and thinking at that moment. It was then that we were directed to put ourselves into the eyes of the other people that were there. Whoever else was with us, go into their body, go into their mind and see through their eyes, see what they were feeling, what they were thinking. And I went into my mom's eyes and I could see through her eyes. I could feel what she was feeling and I could see and feel the stress, the pain, the sadness that she had bottled up inside of her about this moment. This man had abandoned us 5 years ago, had done awful things to her, had treated her so poorly, yet she was there for me. She wanted nothing more than to give me, her only son, a father. She was willing to sacrifice happiness, her perceived happiness, I guess, in order for me to have a father, even if it meant reconnecting with this man who had done so many things, had damaged her and myself so badly, but she was willing to do that for me. And it was at that moment, during this meditation, I started crying. I started losing it because I began to feel a new sense of compassion for my mom that I'd never had before. And the love that I felt for her in that moment was like nothing I'd ever experienced. It was that unconditional love that she was willing to sacrifice so much in order to give me so much. And I just lost it. I was crying. I was feeling what she was feeling. And I truly experienced it in that moment. It was at that moment, then we were also asked, if there's another person, a third person, put yourself into their eyes. And that's when I went into my father's eyes. And at that moment, I could feel his pain. I could feel his fear. I could feel the stress, the resentment he was having about meeting us. He had run away all the way down to Texas to get away from those responsibilities of being a father, of being a husband. He wanted to live his own life the way he wanted to choose, the way he chose it to be. And he escaped in a sense. He ran off. And now here we were confronting him face to face with this idea, this possibility that, hey, we want you to come home. We want you to be part of the family. For me, I wanted a father. I wanted to be like all the other kids out there. And the kids that I knew that had dads, all the possibilities that were going through my mind of, will he take me fishing and camping? Will he play catch with me in the backyard? I was so excited about it and wrapped up in my own desires that I didn't see his fears. I didn't feel his emotions. And in doing so, I was able to understand and forgive him right then and there, and to forgive my mom. I was able to forgive everybody because I was able to see with compassion and love that we were all just searching for something that, we couldn't have at that moment. It was an experience and an opportunity for each of us to grow in our own ways and to evolve. It allowed for me to go so much deeper into the understanding of this idea of compassion, forgiveness, and love. The meditation ended a few minutes later, and I can honestly say I was not the same person I'd been just 20 minutes prior to that. I went into that meditation a different person. I came out completely changed because I'd understood why that had to happen, why that event was so meaningful in my life, and that I had no control over it. I forgave myself. I forgave all of those people involved. I had compassion and love for each of them and for myself for believing these lies. And what happened was so transformational for me. But what was still left to come, I couldn't even imagine in my wildest dreams. So the event ended, and a couple days afterwards, I had to collect my thoughts and really understand what I had experienced, what I had gone through before I could call my mom. And I wanted to call her and tell her how excited I was about this new transformation I had just experienced, about how I'd forgiven everybody, including her. So, I picked up the phone, I dialed her number, and we began to talk. And I shared with her this amazing journey I had just undergone. Um, I told her how much I forgave her for everything that she believed that she may have done, done right, done wrong, anything that she believed she may have done wrong while raising me. I forgave her. I told her everything had to happen exactly the way it had to happen in order for me to become the man I am today. I thanked her and told her how grateful I was for these experiences and how everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to. And that's what allows us to discover the meaning behind the moments of the stories of our lives. So she goes on to tell me that she wished she would have been harder on me at times, that she would have, she told me she wished she would have been stricter. And I reminded her of how fragile I was. I reminded her of how I had tried to kill myself in the past and how I'd suffered from all these issues, this depression. I said, if I wasn't ready until now to really release all of this. And I said, you did everything exactly perfect the way it had to be. And I love you. I'm grateful for it. I even went on to tell her how I'd forgiven Robert for leaving us. And I talked to her. I shared that memory I had with us down in Texas and told her about the whole event I went through and how I forgave him. I forgave her. I saw the compassion and the love from it all. And that's when she told me that, the conversation stopped and there was a pause and got real quiet. And she told me on the other end, she said, Joey, there's something I need to tell you. I've been keeping a secret from you your entire life. And it was time she got that secret off her back. She went on to tell me that she'd been lying to me for 40 years and that only 4 other people in the world knew of this secret that she'd been keeping. And those people were obviously her, my biological father, Robert, my stepfather, Bill, and my uncle, John, who had just passed away the year before. So she took a deep breath and through her tears, she revealed to me, Joey, Robert's not your father. And at that moment, my jaw dropped to the floor on the other end of the phone. And I just sat there in amazement. My mind had been blown by that simple sentence. And for most people, I imagine hearing that the person they believed their father to be wasn't their father, I feel like that would probably be pretty catastrophic for most people to just get that dumped on them. And for me, I was so excited. I had done all this healing work. I had done all of these steps to forgive the pain I'd had, the trauma from my past. And hearing this, I was just excited. I was like, are you kidding me? Who is my father? Tell me more. I've got to know. So she continued on telling me the story of how badly she had wanted a child. And Robert, he was unable to have children. So she was looking everywhere. She went to every option she could find, including going as far as reaching out to the Colombian embassy to see about adopting an orphan child from the country. And I had to stop her at that moment. It's like, wait a minute, Mom. Are you telling me that the reason I get so tan in the summertime, the reason I'm the only one in my family with bright blue eyes, are you telling me I'm half I'm Colombian? I was so excited to hear the outcome, the answer, and she responded with me through tears, said, no, honey, no, you're not Colombian. She said the reality and the truth of what happened was in 1978, she was working at a hospital in Kansas City where they were performing back then, an experimental procedure known as in vitro fertilization. She signed up for the program, filled out all the confidentiality paperwork, and the next thing you know, here I am. I am the product, I'm the miracle of that experiment known as in vitro fertilization. You know, it was at that moment that she told me that I realized that the stories I'd been telling about who I thought I was all of my life were not true. I was no longer the son of this womanizing, alcoholic, abandoning man that I had believed I was for 40 years, but I was, in fact, the son of a medical student at that hospital who later became a doctor. So at the end of the day, you know, it turns out that I was the son of a doctor. I was the son of a wise healer, and not the stories I'd been telling myself about who I believed I had been all of my life. In that moment, I realized I rewrote my biological DNA, all by harnessing the power of compassion, forgiveness, and love. And in doing so, I rewrote my entire past and my entire future. And not only did I rewrite my past and my future, I also found out and realized that I rewrote the past and the future for my children, who are now the grandchildren of a doctor. And if all this wasn't amazing enough, the greatest joy I got out of all of this, the greatest feeling I had was in knowing that I released my mom from 40 years of shame, of guilt, of lies that she'd been carrying with her for my entire life. She no longer had to take on that burden. She no longer had to live in those lies. And again, like I said, I was able to do all this through the power of compassion, forgiveness, and love. Because you see, we each have this innate ability within us to rewrite the stories of our past. And it begins by going in deep and seeing how every single event of our life has meaning. There's so many good moments of our lives. There's so many bad moments of our lives. And in some cases, there's a lot of really terrible and ugly moments that happen to us. But the beautiful thing of it all is we live in a universe where dreams are truly possible. The only thing that holds us back is the same thing that sets us free, and that's our beautiful and wonderful imagination. You know, we've all experienced these setbacks. We've all experienced traumas and hardships at some point in our lives. And for most of us, we allow these setbacks and these traumas to define who we are and what our identity is. But at the end of the day, our past and our stories are traumas. They didn't create our identity. We do that. And it's done that, the traumas, the hardships, the struggles we've had, they're simply moments in time. And those moments were put there by us to learn, to grow, and evolve from. So when we can truly begin to understand this idea and this concept that everything is always happening for us, then we can truly begin to see the beauty in all the chaos that surrounds us. And we can start to ask the questions and dive into the reasons why the things happen to us. We can't dwell on the things that happened. They can't be changed. They are in our past. But the way we interpret the things that happen to us, the way we choose to rewrite and overcome the stories that we tell ourselves about our past, is the true gift that we've been given in this world to create a reality and a life any which way you choose it to be. Using the power of compassion, it allows us to first and foremost forgive ourselves, including others, but at the end of the day, we have to forgive ourselves for believing and choosing to believe in the stories that we think created us, that make up who we think we are. We have to learn to forgive ourselves first and foremost for believing in the illusion. Think of the Bible saying, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Forgive yourself because you didn't know what you were doing. None of us do. If we knew what we were doing when we got here, then all of this would be irrelevant. The purpose of life is to experience the good, the bad, and the ugly, and to see the beauty and the joy, the love, the compassion for all that has happened, and to forgive ourselves for falling victim. We all do it. We've all been victims to the illusion. And what our minds are so powerful of doing is overcoming this illusion, overcoming these stories. And that's what my story, I hope, gives people hope for. It allows people to see that by doing the work on yourself, by going in, by forgiving, by loving, by having compassion for everyone and yourself, it opens a door to the possibilities that are infinite for you, for me, for all of us. And it truly is possible, as my story clearly shows. I rewrote my biological DNA by using these steps, by using these techniques, and by choosing to overcome the stories I thought about who and what I was. Choose love over hate and fear. Love those who have wronged you. They were too just living in that illusion. They were also just doing what they thought they were supposed to be doing. And in fact, forgive those that have wronged you because they were literally doing what you asked them to do, consciously or subconsciously. We don't consciously usually ask for terrible things to happen. They just do. But at the end of the day, those things that happen to us were placed there for a reason. We either choose to understand it, grow from it, and evolve, or we choose to repeat it over and over and over again. The true gift comes when we're able to start to begin to see the beauty in our flaws. Excuse me, hold on. All right. Sorry about that. Had to clear my throat. So, as I was saying, beauty comes when we're able to see our flaws for what they are, that they make us such unique and special people. Each one of us is so special, unique, and individual in our own ways. There can never be another you. No one will ever experience the stories you've experienced, the moments you've shared. Those are yours and yours only. So at the end of the day, how you choose to remember those stories, how you choose to write those stories out in your mind are what decides and creates the identity you believe you are. Your past is not who you are. It's simply an experience you had. It's part of the story you chose to write. And you can imagine that story in any which way you desire. And it starts right here. My purpose here today is really to just share this journey with you and to show you that it is possible on the other side of the pain, the other side of the trauma, the other side of the stigma of mental illness, that we can move forward, we can grow, we can rewrite it. And it's a beautiful, amazing thing that we can all gift that we've all been given. So with that being said, I'd like to open it up to any questions. Anybody out there that wants to ask any questions, know anything further about my experience, about my journey, about the healing process. Each week or each show, I'm really going to go over one or two different aspects of who I believed I was based on the experiences I had in my life. And then I'm going to share with you the ways I overcame them and I rewrote different experiences into the way I wanted to see them. And when we start to feel and believe in those moments, in those stories, that's when they start to take hold. That's when they start to really become truth. So, uh, let's see, who do we got here? Stella Macarthur. Hello, and thanks for tuning in. Glad to have you here. And yes, you're absolutely right. Forgive ourselves first. That is the key here. Forgive ourselves for the illusion that we've been living in and allow ourselves to create from the beauty and the joy. Create from our own imagination the life we desire, the life we choose to be living, life we deserve, as opposed to the sentence, that many of us have given ourselves. And yes, Stella, you said we need to get rid of those repeated cycles, or like you said, let them go. That's the hardest part for a lot of us. Andrea's mother. I'm so happy to have you here, Stella. Andrea, I love what she does. So yeah, very, very cool. So, that's the hardest part for many of us, is the letting go of the traumas, letting go of the why. It's a selfish thing. I think it's the ego at play here when we don't want to let go of things, because a lot of us unfortunately like to feel like and to play out the role of the victim. It gives us some sort of, at the end of the day, it gives us some sort of, acknowledgement that we can blame others. It wasn't our fault. We didn't cause that. It was caused by something external. And I've come to understand that nothing is external. Everything is coming from within us. And it's how we choose to perceive the external world that is really what's important. It's about the memories, the emotions we put upon certain aspects, the things that happen to us. As we're writing this story, we have the ability to write any story we want. We're living in a movie. You're the actor. You're all the supporting actors. You're the extras in the movie. You're the scenery that's been made for the movie. You are everything about your own unique movie. And instead of reliving and repeating on replay, in a sense, the stories of our past, we have to learn how to go in and rewrite those stories so that you can see the beauty, because they were all beautiful moments, even the terrible ones. They were beautiful moments because they created you into the being, the soul that you are right now. And without those moments, you would not be who you are. You would be somebody completely and entirely different than who you are right now. Had any one thing, any single trauma occurred differently for you, your life would be 100% different, completely 180 possibly. But it had to happen that way in order for you to evolve and grow into who you are now. So acceptance is a fundamental key here. And the way we accept ourselves, again, is having compassion for ourselves, accepting that we're not perfect and that we have work to do on ourselves. And in doing so, we can forgive ourselves. We can love ourselves, because at the end of the day, we're all imperfect beings, simply trying to remember who and what we are. And it's the experiences, it's the stories we create that give us that catalyst, that give us the reasons to search, the reasons to heal. Like I said earlier, if we all came here already perfect, then what the hell is this journey for? What are we doing? Just going through the motions. If we already know what we're doing, why we're here, then there's no need for any of this. So instead of running from it, embrace it. Embrace who you are and exactly what you are. You're a divine creation of God, of the Creator. He would never put you here to suffer. He would never put you here to feel pain. And when I say he, she, they, them, however you want to look at your own higher power, God, higher spirit, infinite, We're not put here to experience pain and suffering on purpose. It's only part of the illusion. It's only part of the story that we're here to remember, to learn from. Everything happens for a reason. You're correct, Stella. We just have to understand why. What was so important about that reason? What was so important about that moment? Why did I have to experience sexual trauma? Why did I have to experience abandonment? Why did I have to experience having Tourette's syndrome, which I still live with to this day? Why did I have to experience alcoholism, drugs, all the different addictions? Why did I have to go through attempted suicides? Why did I have to have such a terrible divorce? Why? At the end of the day, I get to look back. I choose to look back on all of those moments, all of the perceived bad things that have happened to me, and I get to reimagine them in a way that they were beneficial for me. I get to reimagine them into a way that supports me, that helps me grow. Because of all the things I suffered from, I experienced, I get to share them now with the world. I get to share them with you guys. I get to tell my story. And if it helps one single person in the world, then I've done my job. And see, that's what happens when we start to heal. When we start to go back and rewrite those stories, we start to realize everything happens for a reason. And in doing so, we start to understand and realize that our life is about purpose. It's about meaning. It's not about waking up and doing a 9-to-5 job and being miserable and being broke and having shitty relationships and sitting in front of the TV for 6 hours a day, binge watching and stuffing our face full of unhealthy junk and crap. Our lives are about purpose. They're about finding your reason for being here. And it starts by remembering. It starts by remembering who you are. And you are the writer. You are the director of your own story. So what story do you want to tell? I said God puts us here to never experience pain. You know, that's not his intention. And at the end of the day, it's only there for us to grow from. And when we grow from it, when we learn the power of how to recreate and reprogram that trauma, those experiences into good moments, into good experiences, we start to unlock and tap into the power that we each have of creation. We are all powerful beyond belief, creators of our reality. And the reality we choose to live in is simply that. It's our choice. The reality you want to live in can be different. It can be changed, but it takes work and it takes going within. It takes, again, using that power of compassion, forgiveness, and love. All right, let's see. Who is still on? Who's out there? I know Adam. Can you see my comments from YouTube? Yes, fear means face everything and rise, not forget everything and run. Yes, absolutely. Things are never hard, or things are hard, but they aren't impossible. Right on, brother. Let's see. Anybody else out there? Any questions? We're getting close to wrapping up the show today. You know, as I said in this show, hey Tina, thanks for joining in. I appreciate you being here. You missed a great show if you're just getting on. But yeah, as I said, today's show, I really wanted to just connect with you guys. I wanted to share my story. I wanted to share my experience of what I've gone through in life. And each show, I want to go deeper, like I said, into a lot of, or not a lot, I want to go deeper into one or two aspects of my past and the way I'm overcoming them, the way I'm rewriting them. And I want to help you guys do the same, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. This show is here to help people understand the power that we have to create the stories and the lives we want to live. And we each have it. We've just forgotten. We've been living in a veil, you know. So for people that struggle with mental illness, we need to have compassion for them. We need to love them. We need to forgive them, for they know not what they do. They are simply the players in your own reality. And for them, You're the players and the actors in their reality. When we no longer judge them for who and what we think they are, and just love them and have compassion for them, see the beauty in who they are and not in their flaws. See the beauty in their flaws, even, but work with them, explain to them, try and help them see the beauty in everything that happens. I know for me, I lived most of my life in that idea of the stories I told of who I thought I was going to become or should become. And that led me down a path of depression. That led me down a path of sadness. And I don't want anyone in the world to ever have to experience that again, because they don't. The fact of the matter is they have the power to create it any which way they want. So let's see. Adam asks, what does mental health mean to you and what inspired you to join the Warriors team? What does mental health mean to me? Mental health was my entire life. Prior to healing, mental health was what I lived in day in and day out. Mental health was the alcohol and drugs and the addictions I used to not face the reality of who I was. I didn't want to go deep into the past because it was tragic. It was traumatic. It was painful. It was scary. So mental health is really a programming issue for all of us. We've all been programmed to believe a certain way. We've been programmed to believe that life should be this way or that way. And the bottom line is that that's bullshit. Life is exactly the way it's supposed to be for you and for me and for each of us. We're designing this in our own unique way, our own movie, in order to help us grow and evolve. Stigmas about mental illness. It's not their fault that they suffer from mental illness. Some of us just experience trauma in different ways, and we don't know how to cope with it. We don't know how to understand it. And for many, it's too scary to try and unravel all at once. So it's a slow and steady process that needs to be handled. It needs to be tackled, definitely. Why did I join the network with you guys? I joined it because, this mental health is probably the number one biggest issue in the world right now. If people can't be healthy on the inside, if they can't love who they are, if they can't have a clear, vision of the beauty that they truly are, then we're failing as a society. We're failing our children. We're failing our loved ones, because the idea is we're all made perfect. We've just been told we're not. So we just need to remember how perfect we really are and use the gifts that we were given. Our imagination, like I said, our beautiful, wonderful imagination is our gift that God gave us in order to create anything we desire. Let's see. Mental health to me is healing. I joined because I felt accepted and knowing others have gone through some of the same issues. Right on, Stella. We've all, regardless of whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we've all had struggles. Bring me one person that says, oh, I've never had a trauma in my life, and I'll dig down and find it. We all have them, be it the smallest little thing buried in our subconscious mind. I tell people, you may have been a 3-4-year-old child that attempted to run out in the street, not knowing, that a car was coming, and your mom or your dad grabbed you and ripped you back to save you from getting hurt. But in doing so, to you, it created fear. It created trauma. Oh my gosh, my mom or my dad, why would they hurt me like that? Why would they yell at me? Why would they rip me so hard out of the street? And we don't remember at that young of an age that they were, or know even, that they were simply trying to protect us. We only see and feel that moment. And if that moment is traumatic enough to us, it locks itself inside of us. It becomes an emotion, becomes a trigger that now is the cause of many of our issues in life. So at the end of the day, like I said, everybody's got something, some sort of a trauma, something that's happened to them at some point in their lives. Most everybody bottles them all up subconsciously. It's the going within, it's the healing, it's the compassion and the forgiveness for oneself that allows these doors that have been locked for most of our lives, that allows those doors to be opened so we can see they weren't trying to hurt us. They weren't being mean to us. They were protecting us out of love. It was our own story. It was our own version that we chose to tell of that moment that caused us to feel this way, that then caused our lives to go in the direction of, I'm not loved, I'm unworthy, I'm a terrible person, no one will ever love me, why do I suck, why does everybody hate me? All the voices in your head can stem from one teeny tiny moment in time, and it's only a story we tell ourselves. So if we don't have any other questions, guys, we're getting close to the top of the hour here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this show up. And I want to thank Adam Duvall for inviting me to be a member of the Mental Health Warriors, for giving me an opportunity and a platform to share my stories, to share my journey, to share the steps I've done to heal myself and to create the life of fantasy that I get to live. Thank you, brother. Anything I can do for you anytime, you know where I'm at. Don't hesitate to reach out. If any of you guys would like to learn more about what I do, you can visit my website at myrealitypractice.com. I offer life coaching. Like I said, I'm a trauma reprogramming specialist. So if you have these traumas, if you have some subconscious traumas that you don't even know you have, which everybody does, but you want to explore those depths, you want to really dive in, then I recommend checking out my website. And if you're interested, contact me for some coaching. That's what I do. If you want to get some free resources, if you want to get free information, by all means, sign up, join the Reality Practice private group on Facebook. Each week we do a live on Tuesdays at 12 o'clock Central Time, be 6 o'clock British Standard Time. We do a live Q&A show, my good friend Liliana and myself, and we share a lot of knowledge and information for free each and every week there. So if you can't afford right now to do something, to enroll in a class or to work one-on-one coaching wise, that's fine. We provide so many free options out there and so many free resources that, if nothing else, just start taking the steps, working on getting better. There's free books online. YouTube is a wealth of books that you don't even realize are out there for free. But start your journey. And if you have questions about it, reach out to me. You can contact me at realitypractice@gmail.com. And again, my website's myrealitypractice.com. Facebook page is The Reality Practice Network, and our group is the Reality Practice private group. Just request to join, and we will be happy to have you hop on and see what it is we do there. Until next time, my friends, I want everybody to stay blessed, and remember to always ask yourself, what reality are you choosing to create today? Bye.